Sahana vavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahaviryan karavavahe, tejasvina vadhitamastu, ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. We are undertaking verse 12 to 18. Jneyam is being expounded. Jneyam means Brahman, or the knower. The knower is myself. There can never be an object of knowledge, because object of knowledge is Sat or Asat. And we have discussed that Brahman can never be Sat or Asat. To know the two, you have to be other than the two. And since we constantly know about the two, Sat and Asat, that means through that inquiry, we can infer there must be something in whose presence the two are validated, the two being Sat and Asat. So this knower, Brahman or Jneyam, these are synonymous words, cannot be objectified, because I said last week, it's only in the presence of the knower that things, that experiences, that the body, that the thoughts, that the emotions are objectified. And the only way to know this knower, myself as Brahman, is to own up. I'm never not a knower, because of which both Sat and Asat all day long throughout life are evidenced. Sat is evidenced. Asat is evidenced. In whose presence are they evidenced? In the knower's presence. So verse 12 to 18 indicates the nature of this knower, Jneyam. And that is what we are expounding. Starting with verse 12 for quick revision, we have stated that Brahman is neither Sat nor Asat, but rather the presence in which both Sat and Asat are distinctly identified. Thought is gone, Asat. It is so. Thought comes back, Sat. It is so. Verse 13, we have stated that Jneyam is the total existence of the universe. That means there's nothing outside Jneyam, because it is the total. Total means it encompasses everything. And out of this total existence, what is created, what comes out? Individual form existences. And we have stated things like face, hands, feet, legs. So next time you're looking at someone and they have a face, hopefully, and you go, okay, that is a face indeed, but that face is existence in a form of my wife. That face is existence in the form of my husband. So no longer is it just a husband or a wife that you've been looking at all your life. Now there's an extra layer of divinity added if this knowledge is really working. And this is where it really comes to show how much you're incorporating this into your life. Your relationship with those around you really starts to modify in the light of this understanding. So therefore, make sure that there is an indicator of change. This helps us to avoid the danger of turning this into an intellectual argument every Tuesday, whereby it's just interesting to listen to and to contemplate. Therefore, the question in the back of the mind should always be, in what way can I apply this? How can this transform my life? And is it transforming my life? And if it's not, then what are the blind spots and why is it not transforming my life? Where am I failing to apply it? Am I too caught up in my life and therefore not really taking the knowledge and contemplating in the light of the knowledge how I can see the world through this new perspective? That is your duty. That is the duty of anyone who studies Vedanta or any kind of philosophy. I did this myself. My teachers did this. Their teachers did this. Their teachers did this. This is how the tradition works. Therefore, the teacher provides the knowledge. The student, whatever role we happen to be playing, their job is to consistently be obsessed. How can I use this? Where can I use this? Where is this changing my life? What today can I look in the light of this new knowledge so that I may use it as practice? Because it really is coming down to practice. All our life, we have been practicing one way of duality. You're there, I'm here, and we have our differences. Therefore, we have to now reverse that. It's come time to ask. Okay, having gone through my view, former view, in every right, as respectful as it is, it served its job. Now I need to train my mind, retrain my mind consistently until this new vision starts to come through. So it really is a firm, direct understanding right now, right now, right now, right now, right now, right now. Trouble comes into life, still right now, right now. Everything's okay, still right now, right now. In other words, the knowledge never leaves, no matter whether you're thrilled, excited, going through ups or downs of life. It doesn't matter. The knowledge of the self is firm. It is above all. It is always prevalent in and through every second, every breath. It is there, firm, right now, right now. When I say right now, in that right now, what is embodied? This entire teaching. Therefore, how do you hold this entire teaching in your mind? Through repetition. There is simply no other way. So this is why I say, yes, on one hand, absolutely, we do have our worldly responsibilities. On the second, we need to ask, in the light of my worldly responsibilities, where can I insert these teachings so that they, through the course of time, become normal ways of perception, normal ways of being. Verse 14 said that even though Brahman is the content of all that is, it still remains unaffected by whatever it happens to be in and through. The mirage example on the sand, and the mirage is wet and it's blue. Irrespective of its attributes, it never contaminates or sullies the sand. That means the sand is its substratum. The mirage is the superimposition. No matter what the attributes of that superimposition are, it never sullies the mirage. In that same way, whatever thoughts you have to be going through, you will notice they never sully you. Because if they did sully you, neyam, then you would still be carrying the thought from that which you were sullied from 5 years ago, from 10 years ago, from 20 years ago. But you will find that all of the attributes belong to the mind. They belong to the mind of whatever happens to be thinking right now. Mind is blank. That is also existence in a form of blankness, pervaded by Brahman. And what is Brahman? We discussed Sat-Chit, existence awareness. So whatever existence awareness pervades, whether it is a silent thought, a sullied thought, you will notice one thing about that experience. You're always aware. Why? Because what we say about Brahman, existence awareness. So now never mind about what form of existence it takes. The point is, I'm still fully capable of discerning that to be Sat, that to be Asat. Why? Because my nature is Brahman, the one because of which I get to distinctly identify the modifications of existence, which are in truth none other than myself. My own power of Maya is capable of borrowing existence myself and modifying it in such a way that it appears as this. Now, where's our point of error? We get stuck into this, and we start inquiring to this. Instead of going one step back and asking, because of whom is this and this and this? Because of me. What is the nature of this and this? Nature is Sat-Chit, existence, awareness modified into this and this. So again, this is where the practice comes from, constantly externalizing the mind onto what's happening out there into what is true right now. So Brahman at all times remains unattached. In fact, if you think about why is Ishvara capable of running this entire universe in a perfect, succinct, 24/7, 365 fashion without making any errors? Because Ishvara, despite this creation being none other than Ishvara's, this creation and Ishvara, they're disassociated. That means there's no connection between this creation and Ishvara, just like there's no connection between the mirage and the substratum. Whereas we humans, we think that we're supposed to be attached to perform well. No, it's actually the other way around. If we're able to objectively see things as they are, then our intellect actually increases. This is why a surgeon no matter how masterful he or she is not allowed to operate on his own wife, because a surgeon is attached, emotionally attached to his wife. Therefore, his intelligence goes down. So there's a level of objectivity in which we can actually exercise the fullness of our intellects. And what is objectivity? It is temporarily suppressing one's sense of what can I get out of this, or a sense of what will happen out of this, but rather looking at it as if you have nothing invested into what's about to happen, just looking at it factually. That alone is what we call the highest use of intellect, whereby you're not afraid of what your results will be as a result of this thinking. You're not looking at the future consequences. You're just accounting whatever's going on right now. Let's look at the facts that are available right now. At the same time, recognizing I may not have all the facts, because that's also objectivity. And from that place, making a decision. Verse 15. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charamevacha sukshmatva tadavidnyayam durastham chantike chatat.
Brahma is outside and inside of the beings. It is that which does not move, and indeed what moves. Because it is the subtle, it is not known, and it is far and well as near. It is both far and near. To ask, where is Brahman? You must already concluded that there is not. That it is not locally available. When that is so, I would ask, what is Brahman? If you understand that it is existence and the cause of everything, there is no question of where. When every place is Brahman, where is the place that Brahman is not? It is something that, like asking, where is space? Space is everywhere. It has no location other than as a concept in your consciousness. Brahman is your own self-evident, but when you look for it, how will you recognize it? It is not an object, it is you, and it is all objects too. If you see something, that is Brahman. So is the sight and the seer. Riti is Brahman. It is nothing but a name and form of consciousness. And the knower of this Riti, whose nature is nothing but consciousness, is also Brahman. Being the subtlest, it cannot be known. Avinyaya, meaning you cannot know it as an object. It is yourself. It is far.
Durastha.
If you look upon it as an object and near, if you know it is yourself, it is the durista, far, for the one who looks for Atma as an object. Shankara says it is far because it is not recognized as yourself. When you do not recognize Brahman as yourself, how long will you look for it? If it is other than you, you may stumble upon it, but it is possibility of stumbling upon yourself. Therefore, Shankara says, even in 1,000, it is not gained. It is always far away, like the horizon. As you go towards it, you do not come any nearer to it. If you are a seeker of Brahman, you will be seeking forever, because the notion that you are the seeker will never go. Whether you look for Brahman inside or outside yourself, you will not find Brahman, because the one who looks for Brahman is Brahman. Thus, it is not only far, but also near, because it is Atma. Therefore, Shankara says, for the wise, I am all this, and Brahman is all this, are the same thing.
How the same thing can be near and far away at the same time is illustrated in the following story. Two men were sharing a compartment on an overnight train journey. One had a lot of money and was counting it openly in the presence of the other one, who resolved to steal it. The thief waited for the wealthy man to retire and then searched all his belongings, but to no avail. In the morning, after returning from the bathroom, he saw his fellow traveller sitting on the bunk counting his money again. In frustration, he asked him outright where he had hidden his money during the night. The wealthy man responded, under your pillow. For the thief, the money was very near, antike, right under his own pillow, and yet it could not have been farther away, durasta, because he did not know it. Similarly, Brahman is the nearest because it is yourself, and yet nothing can be further away if you do not know it.
So Bahihi Antahacha Bhutanam. So Brahman or Nyayam is both inside and outside of living beings. For example, Space is both inside and outside of the room. Right now, look at your room. So space, one space is inside the room and also outside the room, outside the house. However, that space appears different in reference to the kind of objects you have in your house. That's why we say, it's a unclean space here in the room, or it's a much fresher space outside. So that we only define space in reference to the kind of objects we have, but also in reference to the walls. So no matter how far the room expands, it's only expanding in the presence of the space that was already accommodating it. Imagine the room is a person, and the room starts to overeat, right? So now, before the room eats, it says, no, everything outside my 4 walls, that's not me. I reject, I do not like out there because that's not me. And then the room starts to overeat and it gets fatter and fatter. Now, next day, or say 5 minutes, it's a magical food. Now, 5 minutes later, the room expands twice. So now, what is the room accommodating? It's accommodating the very space that it was rejecting only 5 minutes ago. In other words, whatever the size that the room takes on, it's only increasing in the aspect of that space already being provided there so that I can increase. And this is how we go about our experience sometimes. We say, no, everything outside these boundaries called the walls of the body is not me. But suppose you grew 5 minutes from now and you suddenly embody the entire Australia or entire country, right? And now you say, okay, see, this is all me. Get away from me, right? But 5 minutes ago, we were just rejecting all of that as not I, not I. And it's putting all sorts of labels on there. So now like this example, existence cannot be localized. It cannot be localized to any particular size or object, because it's only because of existence that that attribute is. Right? So the existence is already waiting there. And that attribute, no matter how much it grows or into what it grows, it enjoys and is, that's already waiting for it. It's already waiting to capture its growth, waiting to capture its new size. In other words, for example, you look between the lights, right? You look at the light, look at the fingers, and then you say, okay, so the light's shining on the hand, but it's not shining in between, right? Well, the moment I close my fingers, light is shining. In other words, the light was shining there all along, but it's only because of the reflecting medium that it seems like the light is not shining. But the moment you move your hand or you put your fingers together, the light continues to shine. The same light that's here is now the same light that's over here. In other words, that consciousness, that existence is already waiting to capture the form the moment it grows in size, or the moment it goes from here to there, to there, to there. That existence is always there providing that business. And then acharam, charam evacha. So jneyam, the self, is both moving and unmoving. Notice I use the word self. So I'm going to interchange these words so we don't always stick with the same words, Brahman or jneyam. Self, atma, jneyam, consciousness, awareness, existence. I will keep alternating these words because they're all pointing to the same reality. So jneyam is both moving and unmoving. How do you resolve this contradiction that self is both moving and unmoving?
It provides a platform to acknowledge moving and unmoving. It's like the screen.
Brahman is all things within the universe, and everything within the universe is always in motion. It's always moving, but it's also that which doesn't move, because otherwise you couldn't know about the movement.
It's everywhere, so there's no need to move.
What is jneyam's svarupa? Jneyam's svarupa is non-moving. Why? Because that which has no boundaries or is infinite, it has no need to move. Why? Because it obtains already everywhere. Only a finite object within time and space has a need to move. I am not occupying everything, therefore I need, as a body, need to move over there. But that which is already obtaining in and through everything simply has no need to move because it's already over there. Okay, what about there? It's already over there. What about the edge of the universe? It's already over there. Therefore, it is all pervading. For that reason, it has no need to move. But then it also says it's moving, seems to be moving because of the upadhi. Upadhi, we spoke last week. Now I'll take my little ball here. So if this blue cloth is the upadhi, this is clear, right? Clear, nice little transparent bowl. This is called upahita. Now watch what happens when I magically place this cloth behind. It suddenly becomes blue. Magic, right? So this cloth is therefore upadhi, because it is that which, as though, not actually, borrows attributes or gives attributes to this intrinsically pure, intrinsically clear. It seems to move because this upadhi seems to be modifying or giving it or making it appear as if this upahita in front of you is moving right now, but it's not. It's the upadhi that's moving. Okay, now let's take an example of this. As I said before, suppose I take a hand and light is shining onto the sand. So first of all, let's acknowledge this. We need the light to shine onto this hand, yeah, in order to see the sand. If I turn off the light, there's no hand. Okay. So now the moment I move this hand, it seems that the light that was just here just a second ago is no longer there, right? That's the first observation. The second observation is the moment I move this upadhi, this superimposition, it seems like this light is moving along with the hand, because you're seeing the hand, right? Okay, so the hand is there, but I'm also seeing the light. So the light is moving with the hand. But the light is still shining here. It just seems like that the light has moved with the upadhi. Another example of the lighthouse that I spoke last week. Suppose you have, in fact, all lighthouses have this huge, powerful light, and it's shining all around. But what's around the light? A dome that's spinning with 3 holes. And that 3-hole dome is projecting that light very far away, and it seems like the light is moving, and you go, wow, the light is moving. But is the light actually moving? Absolutely not. The light's chilling out in the lighthouse, just shining all around. But being limited by the upadhi, it makes it seem as if the light is moving along with the upadhi. We go through some gloominess, and then we say, the whole day is gloomy. Now, is really the whole day gloomy? Day is the upahita. It's just value neutral. It's just a day. But then according to our minds, our moods, we say, okay, I don't feel good today. I feel gloomy. Therefore, what kind of a day was it today? It's a gloomy day. In other words, the day becomes a victim of our superimposition upon it. And then we treat people accordingly to our moods. Existence being all-pervading, not moving at all. As we said, Nyayam Svarupa is non-moving. What happens when we move? When you move your body from A to there, from here to there? I'm moving. But we just said earlier that you are that which is non-moving. You are Brahman. So it appears like you're moving. Why? Because of the association, because of this close relationship between myself, Brahman, and the upadhi, the upahita and the upadhi. Therefore, when this body moves from here to there, it seems like I am moving. But in actuality, it's only because I am that this body, having moved from here to there, remains conscious, not only here, but also remains conscious there, and then remains conscious there, and then remains conscious there. In other words, I am. This body moves over there. I am. This body moves to Greenland. I am. This body goes to outer space. I am. It goes to the moon. I am. So it appears like that I am because of this body, but in actuality, because I am, this body is. In other words, because I am, the sensation of this body is known over here. Go elsewhere. Because I am, the sensation of this body is also known over there. Why? Because I am everywhere, all the time, never not present, being the nature of existence awareness. So in other words, Maya makes it as if, I will go on to Maya soon, it reverses the connection. It makes it as if I, consciousness, am inside this body, but in reality, because I am, this body is made aware wherever it happens to be going, from here to there, to there, to there. Durastam cha antike cha tat. It is near and far. So this has 2 meanings. Meaning number 1, it is both near and far. It first of all means that Brahman will never come to you. Let's all look for Brahman in meditation. I'm going to seek him out. Where is he hiding? He's somewhere in my mind. I'll just go find a Kundalini awakening experience. That is it. He's going to awaken from the Muladhara chakra, right? He will never come to me because it's evident that I am. I'm in meditation. It's evident that I am. I'm out of meditation. It's evident that I am. I'm having a hard time meditation. It's evident that I am. Having a wonderful time meditation. It's still evident that I am. In other words, all of these experiences that the body and mind is going through, they are incidental. They are upadhis. I am present, 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 present is the upahita. So all of these roles that the individual plays, that this person plays, they are played because of this amness. In other words, they depend upon this amness. As I said earlier, wherever this body goes, I am. Is this your experience? What else does this mean? We do not need to induce any kind of action to recognize the self, to recognize myself, nyayam, because any action implies that that which I'm seeking is far away right now. Therefore, the mistake gets made. So in other words, the presupposition is already incorrect. Just to try to apply an action implies that what I'm trying to seek is over there. Now, what did the book say? I will never find it over there, because the very attempt of finding it is only because of the presence of I am. So in other words, I'm only then seeking or trying to find an idea of that which I think that I am, but I am irrespective of what idea I have about I am. And lastly, we're still on meaning number one of this far near. Next time children ask you, hey, mommy, daddy, is Bhagavan in Vaikuntha, in heaven? How do you answer this question? You have to insert one word.
Also.
One word you insert. Absolutely, sweetheart, or Sunny. Absolutely, he is in Vaikuntha also. In other words, this tells the child, okay, so he's not only over there, but he's also over there. He is in your mind also. He's also here. One word. Now, meaning two is what Adi Shankara is proposing. And he says that for the wise, that means for the Jivan Muktaha, Brahman is near. Because knowing that this existence awareness, being myself, is evident right now. That evidence of I am, that is Brahman. And for the ignorant, Brahman is far. The ignorant one thinks that it is an experience. It is a specific object of knowledge that I'm supposed to have in some future point in time. Therefore, the search continues, because as we have spoken, existence is not over there. Existence is everywhere. Everything is existence. So therefore, it comes not a matter of trying to gain it as an object of experience, but rather remove this notion, this nagging notion of trying to experience something bigger, but rather own up to whatever is here right now that is Brahman. Is that it? Absolutely. This is where the trouble comes. We always want it to be some experience, but it is not an experience. It cannot be an experience. It is this, 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 this. In whatever form this takes, because we have discussed last week, existence is always modified into some form. Now, never mind about the modification, but rather the existence itself. It is, it is, it is. So then we search for something more divine, trying to purify our minds. Impossible. No matter how much you try, you will never purify your mind in mithya, because there's always more to purify. There are fountains of samskaras just waiting for you to finish this round of purification. And I go, okay, you've done a good job, Sunny. Now let me pour you session number 2. And you go, wow, where does these cans of thoughts come from? We have to have a fine balance between working upon the relative person, the relative mind, but at the same time recognizing in and through all of this, the knowledge is what truly solves everything, literally. Because the person who wants to constantly improve themselves is only doing it assuming that this person is existence, the only existence, but that is not true. This person is only an incidental existence, a modification of existence. The I am is the real truth. So there's always a balance between the two. We're not saying deny personal development or deny that, but rather have a fine balance between both. Sukshmatvat tad avidnyayam. If Brahman is everywhere all the time, how come it remains unrecognized?
It has no attributes.
Super. So let's stick with Madhu. Brahman is free of attributes. How do we relate to anything in this world? Through attributes. In other words, the less attributes something has, the harder it is to relate to. The more attributes something has, the easier it is to relate to. Suppose we take the 5-element model of creation, the 5 elements: space, air, fire, water, earth. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean water as in physical water, but in this case, I'm going to convert these elements into literally fire and water, something that we can relate to. Let's take earth. Earth is very easy to relate to, like Mother Gaia, physical earth, soil, very easy to relate to. Why do you think we love to go to nature? Not all of us, but nature, it's like by yourself, because all your five senses are engaged. Sound, birdies, air, form, smell, and maybe taste. You may be eating a lollipop or something. In other words, all your five senses are engaged. So it's very easy to relate to nature. Now, suppose we want to relate to water. Still easy, right? Go swimming. However, one sense is denied. You don't have smell. Now, never mind about ocean smell or chlorinated water smell. I'm just talking about general pure water. It has no smell. It still has taste, all right? And that taste is called neutral taste, but it has no smell. So we have no issue relating to water, but one sense has been denied. You cannot smell water. You can't taste it, but you cannot smell it. Now, suppose you want to deal with fire. That attracts a different kind of audience. It's denied you smell. Can you smell fire? Yes, or cannot taste fire. So a little bit harder, but still easy too, because you can still see it. And our primary modality is visual, so we can still see fire, easy. We can still hear fire. We can still feel fire on our skin, warmth. What about air? Air is actually something that kids have a hard time, younglings have a hard time relating to. If you talk, hey, air, what do you mean by that? Air. Already harder, because you're denied smell, taste, form, can't even see air. What about space? Not even air to work with anymore. You're denied smell, taste, form. Can't even feel. Can you feel space? No. Four senses denied. Much harder to grasp. And when most say space, what do they relate to? Outer space. Still an object out there. Now, my question is, where's the fine line between the Earth's atmosphere and where does suddenly outer space start? So as we can see, the further we go down, the more senses we take out, the harder it is to relate to what we're speaking about. In fact, we needed Einstein, at least in the Western world, I know in Vedas this has already been expounded, to tell us what is space. It is curved elastic matter. Because space is the smallest, the most subtlest of the subtlest you can work with from the standpoint of Vyavaharika. Can't get more subtle than that. Any particle you discover, whether if it's quantum field theory or quantum physics, it's still dealing within the realm of space. So they're trying to find something, but it's still within space. So we needed an exclusive mind, a philosopher like Einstein, to tell us what is space, because the general public cannot do that. They still relate to earth, water, fire. Air is still kind of there. It depends on your age, but air can still relate to that. Space, space and object. Outer space, well, I'm not interested in outer space. Now, what happens when you come to Brahman, which is even subtler than space? No senses involved at all. No attributes, zero. Hardest to comprehend. You need the subtlest mind. A mind even subtler than that of a quantum physicist, because even a quantum physicist will convert consciousness into something that I can perceive through one of my five senses. So it shows us how deeply ingrained the human behavior is in trying to relate through the senses. It doesn't matter, even if they deny this question, the next postulation is going to be, no. We actually, it's a theoretical, it's a rational theoretical notion, but that too is another sense. In fact, that too is still within space and time, a thought, a notion. So for Brahman to be discerned, one needs a highly, highly, highly sensitive, qualified mind. Verse 16, avibhaktam cha bhuteshu, vibhaktam iva cha stitam, bhuta bhartracha jneyam, grasishnu prabhavishnu cha.
That Nayam Brahma remains undivided in the beings and is seemingly divided, is the sustainer of the beings and elements, and is the devourer of the creator. It is undivided but looks as though divided. It is undivided in all the beings like space, even though space seems to be divided by the various conditioning factors like the walls of a room, etc. It remains undivided, relatively all-pervasive. Then it is seemingly divided because of the conditioning factors, upadhis. It is the seemingly that makes the difference between knowledge and ignorance. If you say seemingly divided, you know. If you say divided, you do not. This means that we need not remove any divisions that may be perceived because there are no real divisions.
So line 1, avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva chastitam. In other words, consciousness, Brahman, stays undivided and yet appears as if divided. For example, here, consciousness is recognized over here. There, consciousness is recognized over there because you're standing upright, vertical. You have to be conscious. But what about between us? Suppose this is a physical meeting and I'm looking at you and you're looking at me and you're absolutely sure I'm conscious. You say that to yourself and you say, yeah, absolutely sure you're conscious, Andre. Okay, agree. But what about between us? Much harder because it's easy to see consciousness through a sentient being. Now, because of this, what kind of conclusion do we make? Okay, so that means my consciousness is different from your consciousness. Our consciousness is different from an elephant's consciousness. Our elephant's consciousness is different from a worm's consciousness. No, one and the same consciousness operating through a different instrument, through a different body, mind. And again, we demonstrate this through light and, for example, I'll take a black surface to make it a little bit easier. And we say, so light shining and the light is not shining in between. So, but if I close, I say, okay, now the light's coming. So in other words, the light didn't go anywhere, but it only appears that there was a division. So now how do we make this correction? We say the division does not belong to the light. What does the division belong to? Division belongs to the fingers and not the lights. Division belongs to the forms, but not to existence. Because as I said earlier, existence is just waiting there for the form to appear in existence. Or we've got space. The one space, same space, attributeless space, manifests as room space, manifests as the cup space. So if you have a cup inside, right, from the standpoint of inside, the space seems different than from outside here. So one space is the same, but from a standpoint of the four walls, for example, let's take a house, or from the standpoint of a cup, that space seems as if divided. Or we take the example of electricity. Is electricity different here or in China? Are they the same or are they different? Chinese electricity, European electricity, Australian electricity. No, it's so different. Same, right? Same electricity. So electricity is one and the same, all pervading. However, when conditioned by the light bulb, then this electricity manifests as the effulgence in the filament. Now, can we say that this electricity is just the effulgence in the filament? No, because this electricity also manifests as rotation of the fan when it's operating through a different instrument. This is why I say one consciousness operating through different instruments, like an elephant, like a dog, like a cat, like a man, like a human being, or any sentient being for that matter, that sentient being will display traits according to that sentient being. It's called their swadharma, their dharma, their uniqueness. But the light that's shining, the existence, making it aware, making their components aware, capable of discerning where to go. You put a little finger in front of an ant. What does an ant do? Just goes through the finger? No, the ant stops. It goes around the finger. In other words, the same consciousness is even illuminating the ant's mind, the ant's brain. And because of that, the ant is able to make an intelligent decision, call its friend, and line 2 of the same verse. It says, Bhuta bhartacha tatnyayam prabhavishnucha. Brahman, by his inscrutable power of Maya, takes the role of the creator, sustainer, and also the swallower, destroyer, the dissolver of everything. Simple example, plants come out of the earth. Plants are sustained by the earth. Plants dissolve in none other than the earth. Ornaments are born of the gold. They are sustained by the gold. They take their pride only because of the gold. And when they ultimately melt, when they're no longer needed, they get melted into none other than themselves, because they were the gold all along. So therefore, we can conclude that this line 2 says, in reference to all plurality, multiplicity in this universe that we observe, in reference to all dualistic, apparently different objects, in reference to all plurality, every object, every experience, whether it is enjoying the mode of creation, sustenance, or destruction, is only borrowing one of those three modes from Sat Chit, existence awareness. It knocks on existence awareness's door and says, hey, can I borrow some of you so I can appear as happiness? Can I borrow some of you so I can appear as sadness? And then existence awareness says, your logic is clearly incorrect. How can you borrow? Just to say that, you already have to exist. In other words, there's no question of borrowing from a different existence. It already is existence awareness, modified as that particular form. Now, suppose we don't know this. Then what do? We get born every life and we specialize in an individual existence. Really good specialists every life, fascinated into different objects. So then we invest our whole life studying that modification of existence. One little speck, like a fractal. You've seen a fractal? The more you zoom in, the same thing you find, just like the level before it. And so we make our whole life about looking at just one little speck in entire infinity of creation, rather than looking the content, the substance that inheres in all of the different modifications of that one same existence. And then we get results, and this is called punya papa. And therefore, then we enjoy those results. The enjoyer, the sufferer of the results, as we will see soon, is called a samsari. What is samsara? We will also see that. Samsara basically means, for now, enjoying the results and also suffering the results of my past actions. Why? Because owing to my ignorance, I was born thinking that this world is all there is, thinking that this world is the final reality. Therefore, let me make the best from this world. And for that reason, the person gets invested and therefore suffers or enjoys. Verse 17. Jyotisham apita jyotihi tamasah param uchyate jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam hridhi sarvasya vishpitam.
Nayam Brahma, the light of lights, is said to be beyond ignorance. It is knowledge. It is that which has to be known. It is that which is arrived at by knowledge, and it is present in the minds of all. Atma is the light of all lights. That Brahman that is to be known is the light of all lights. Jyotisam Jyotihi. The sun, moon, stars, and various other sources of light provide the basis for visual perception by the eyes. You cannot visually perceive an object unless that object itself is a source of light or reflects light from another source. This situation that we know is now converted into analogy to reveal the svarupa of Atma. An opaque object cannot reveal itself. It requires a source of light. The source of light does not require another source of light to illuminate it. So visually you can perceive a source of light by itself. Even a glowworm in the night reveals itself without the help of another light. Now, is a source of light self-revealing? If it is, it should reveal itself even if you close your eyes. But even the sun, such a powerful source of light, is not able to do that. No source of light is self-revealing. Then how do you arrive at its existence? Only by perception. It becomes an object which is illuminated by another source, just as an opaque object is. What is that source? the light in your eyes. The source of light is illumined by the light in your eyes, and therefore is not self-evident. The eyes themselves are not self-evident, because if they are not backed by the mind, they will not see anything. An inferred object, like a particle, also depends entirely upon your inferring mind. Then what is self-evident? The mind is not self-luminous, because if it were, it would not be able to change, and you would not be able to perceive any object. To see an object, you must have a vritti in the form of the object. Therefore, the mind also has to be illumined by something else. What is the final source that is self-evident, self-effulgent? It can only be Atma.
Verse 17, Jyotisham api tad jyotihi. So Krishna here is borrowing from, actually from Mundaka Upanishad, verse 9 and 10, to describe Brahman, because in Mundaka Upanishad, they also use the word Jyotihi, that means the light, to describe. So every Upanishad describes Brahman in a different way, and this is the beauty of the Upanishads. They always use different wording, and therefore it works on different minds. Also in Kena Upanishad, to describe Brahman, how do we do that? We say the eye of the eye, the mind of the mind, the ear of the ear. In other words, the ear behind the ear, the eye behind the eye, the mind behind the mind. So in this logic, in this way that Krishna is now describing, let's start with this. Let's take the sun. Because of the sun, you can see. Yes? In other words, the sun presence causes objects to be illumined. Okay. Now let's take this analogy and extend it onto what the verse is saying. What the verse is saying is in reference to external objects. So pick anything in your room right now, right? Any object, or even if you're outside, in reference to any external object, they are seen. Why? They are seen because the sense organs are the light. In other words, without the sense organs, if your eyes are closed, you cannot see anything. So now it's comparing the light to the sense organs. For example, hearing is called light. Why is hearing called light? Because in the presence of hearing, sounds are known. Smelling is called light because in the presence of smelling, fragrances and odors are known. Logic is also light because in the presence of applying reasoning, what is known? An ocean, an understanding is grasped. Words are also light. Why? Because suppose the light gets turned off and you're inside a dark room, but I have night vision glasses and I lead you, I still use my words to point you out of that dark room and you still find your way. Therefore, even in a dark room, words can still serve to be the light, even if your eyes are closed. So in other words, what it's saying is every sense organ or every sense instrument is a light towards its respective type of object, towards objects of sound, taste, smells, visions, feelings, or sounds, or any kind of sensory data. What is the light of the sense organs? The light of those sense organs is the mind, because if that sense organs, where is it going to send its data? It's got to send its data to somewhere. It sends its data in the mind. What happens in the mind? All of those 5 sensory experiences, they get assimilated or they get culminated into this one screen of the mind. In fact, when it says the word vritti, vritti just means thought. So your mind is nothing but a replication of everything that's happening outside. And what is happening on the outside? A reconstruction on the basis of what your sense organs have picked up. So in other words, your sense organ picks up a form, picks up sound, picks up smell. And all of that data goes inside the mind. The mind reconstructs that and makes it appear as if I'm now looking at this world. So all of that is happening inside the mind right now. And then it continues. It says, despite this mind, the screen of the mind, which is reconstructing the scene of the external Vyavaharika world, what is the light of it? The final light is consciousness, Brahman. Because if there's no consciousness, if there's no conscious principle, then whatever that I mentioned previously, whatever data, it's completely meaningless because there's no conscious being in whose presence can give meaning to it. Where is it? To whom is it going to get reported to? It's like going inside a black hole. There has to be a conscious presence going, aha, this is being witnessed right now. For this reason, existence consciousness is called the light of all lights, because even the sun that I started out with depends on what? Your eyes to be open, your skin to pick up the heat from the sun. And this data goes inside the mind, but the mind also needs its own light, needs a conscious being that makes this whole process meaningful.
Consciousness and knowledge, are they the same thing?
Yeah, knowledge can be used in different contexts. In other words, there is knowledge of, that means there is awareness of. In that case, it's the same thing. But also knowledge can be used, okay, you understand definition number one? For example, I'm now speaking to you, David, and there's knowledge of this experience right now. In other words, this whole experience can be put into one bracket, into one huge bracket, and then you can say there is knowledge of this experience. In other words, there is conscious awareness of this experience. So in that case, when you say knowledge, it just means nyayam.
The knowledge of Brahman is...
Now, knowledge of Brahman, now that's when we're talking about the pointer towards what is ever present. In other words, I need words through their teachings, they point the reader so that the reader may recognize what is it that is having this experience of reading these words and experiencing this whole process of self-inquiry, because that whole process is also illumined by nyayam. Robert?
Yeah, you find it in different terminology in the Bible, where St. Paul said, all things are shown up by being brought into the light. And whatever is brought into the light itself becomes light. He was talking about Christ consciousness or knowledge of another reality, order of reality. So knowledge to the light eventually.
Yeah, that's good. So whatever is, everything becomes light in the presence of light. Indeed. In other words, everything gets the glory to be, everything is shone upon by this one reality. Therefore, it enjoys its distinctness because of this one light.
Words can be limited. And so it's trying to describe something that's unlimited, trying to describe something that's pretty hard to describe, isn't it?
So that statement only becomes true from the standpoint of not having the ability to yet speak clearly in such a way as to directly point to what is already true right now. So it always depends on what stage we're talking about. For example, a child will say it's very hard to describe how I feel, but to an adult, it's much easier. In fact, adults have some problems describing that too. But if you really are in touch, right, with what's going on right now, then every word you say carries weight. And that weight carries meaning of what you're actually trying to describe. So no, in my experience, I've not found any problems with words at all, even though it's a common statement to say that words are limiting and it cannot be quite described. My answer is every word, every description is describing it. Yeah, so it's a slightly different opinion, but two ways to look at it. Tamasaha param uchyate. This knowledge, nyayam, which David was pointing out, is beyond darkness. And let's start with physical darkness, the vyavaharika darkness, just the closed lights turned out darkness. Light can illumine everything but one thing. What is that? Physical light can illumine everything except one thing. 10 points for this.
Itself.
Okay, that's a very smart answer. Light can illumine everything in this universe except one thing.
Black holes.
A black hole, good. In other words, it cannot illumine darkness. The question now is, can eyes illumine darkness? No, because eyes stop functioning when light stops. You need light to enter the eyes for the eyes to work. So now, what is it that illumines the darkness in pitch black or when eyes are closed? Let me bring this what Rani was mentioning. What is that darkness when you close your eyes? That darkness, is your eye seeing that? No, because eye only functions in the presence of light. So what is seeing that darkness? Simple experiment, you are. It cannot be the eyes because eyes only work through light, but you shut off the light. So whatever darkness you're experiencing right now, that's because of myself. Therefore, consciousness can also illumine, as the book said, darkness, illumines physical darkness. But it also illumines the absence of knowledge, and that's called ignorance. That's why we say, I don't know. I know that I don't know. Okay, next line. Jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam. So it's describing the nature of Brahman. So what is Satchit? Satchit or Brahman is, let's start with Jneyam. Jneyam, already we've discussed. The subject, the knower, self. Brahman is also Jnanam. In this case, Jnanam is talking about any object of knowledge, whether known or unknown, whether Sat or Asat, it's still Jnanam. It's also talking about a knowing instrument. What is a knowing instrument? The Antahkarana, the Buddhi, the mind, the sense organs, because they are that which perceives, knows about what's going on, knows about stuff. Jnanam also refers to the process of knowing. For example, if I ask you, what is 67 plus 15? Calculate that, please. 67 plus 15. Keep thinking. See that thinking right now? Whatever's going on, that is also Brahman, because of Brahman. Brahman modified in process of thinking. And also, Jnanam constitutes that through which one comes to know this knowledge, this truth, and that is Brahma Vidya, self-knowledge, in the form of scriptures, of course. And then Jnana Gamyam, in other words, even the destination that one is seeking, that we are seeking, at all times, past, present, and future, that destination is Brahman. In other words, we're only ever seeking Brahman, talking about Brahman, making love to Brahman, quarreling over Brahman. Hridi Sarvasya. So in other words, Jneyam is the dwelling in the heart of all. Now, philosophically, what does heart mean? But where is Brahman known? That's a better question. Only one place, Buddhi. So when it says in your heart, it's actually talking about a unsullied, pure Buddhi, because Buddhi is the only place that's capable of reflecting this pure consciousness. It cannot get reflected on your arm. It's only in the Buddhi. Brahman is shining on everyone's Buddhi, but the only one that's capable of discerning what is that that's shining and that onto which it's shining onto, the only one that's capable of discerning that is the one who has this pure intellect. Because the more sullied the intellect becomes, the more it mixes up this reflection of the light with its own notions. Therefore, it's unable to discern what is what. I am the start, I am this, I am this, I am that. And so therefore, it becomes very hard to pull two things apart and therefore see them distinctly as they are, what they are. Now, the question is how to know this Brahman, how to know myself as Brahman.
By knowing what you're not.
By knowing what you're not. Good. So that is the neti-neti method. That means the first prerequisite. But then after that neti-neti, by knowing what I'm not, what do we do then? We need to apply knowledge. We have to say, I'm a conscious being. Are you conscious? Absolutely. That is the only fact that you do not need anyone to verify. Now, most stop there, but you know what happens? You know what the mind does? It goes silently. You're conscious. You know why? Because your body is alive. Therefore, the person, after making that statement, after owning up, I am a conscious being, one needs to refrain from falling into the trap of saying, and that is because my body, my mind is alive. As I said earlier, only because I am, the sensation of aliveness of this body is. Whereas, how do we do? Usually, we mistake. We say, because this body, mine is alive, I am. That is a mistake. So therefore, you have to start training your mind to reverse this process. Because I am, there's a sensation of aliveness. Because I am, there's a sensation of death. Because I am, there's a sensation of confusion. In other words, even death is an upati, even aliveness is an upati. So therefore, through the course of practice, this knowledge becomes so firm that the person clearly is able to discern between myself and the body that's being carried around 24/7.
Follow the scripture under the guidance of an acharya.
Absolutely. So in other words, follow the instructions. And of course, you also need a little bit of faith there, because if we just listen as an intellectual exercise, it doesn't work. So we need to have also a relationship and also trust with the teacher. Absolutely.
And also to remember that everything is in me.
Yeah, so initially there's a remembrance. There is a constant reminder and practice.
It is all happening in me.
Yeah, good. In other words, me to make an assertive statement, but it needs to be backed up by knowledge. If we just say this because we're being told, and we're trying to make it sound cool, this is going to be an utter failure. And it should be a failure because the person is going to be incomplete. Yeah, so good, Alison. And also, let's add one more thing. Even if you say that, right? Even if you understand that, does that mean that's the final? No. What is Nidhyasanam? What part does Nidhyasanam play? Constant refinement in knowledge. There's no such thing as the final in Mithya. This is a mistake. So it's a constant refining process of more understanding the nature of myself.
Yes, because quite often, sorry, Andre, quite often it's very easy to just get shaken out of that. You lose that. You can go in and out depending on what happens.
Yeah, now this in and out is because of the mind's, through the course of practice, there's no question of in and out, right? But at the beginning, there's certainly this in and out, like lights coming on and off.
Yeah.
So we need to understand this fact of consciousness that I am, that is you. What do I mean by fact of consciousness? There is a fact. It's a fact that I am conscious. That is because of I am. How else do we know? We understand I am the one in whose presence both, as I said earlier, both is and is not are evidenced. It is evidenced to me, self, that it is. It is evidence to me that it is not. This is your experience. No one can deny this. It's not a statement, intellectual statement to listen to. For example, the thought, right? The thought is right now, and then the thought disappears. You forget. That forgetting is called asat. So I knew just a moment ago that there was a thought, and now I still know that the thought is gone. Therefore, consciousness is the witness of the presence or the absence of thoughts. Whether the thought is present, I know that. Whether the thought is absent, I know that. Okay, now finally, the conclusion is, Arjuna, says Krishna, Arjuna, I have told you about the topic of Jneyam Brahma. Now this Jneyam is similar to the word Kshetrajna, which we spoke about earlier. So what's the difference between Jneyam and Kshetrajna? They both refer to Brahman or consciousness or Satchit. So whenever you hear the word Kshetrajna or Jneyam, we're hearing Brahman. Now I'll give you a little bit different. There's a slight distinction between the two. Kshetrajna is when consciousness is obtaining through the body-mind. Just a specific jiva, from one standpoint of the jiva. And Kshetrajna is also called Atma, or Jivatma. Therefore, Kshetrajna is consciousness operating through the jiva's body-mind. So, Kshetrajna is consciousness from a standpoint of microcosm. Jneyam is that same consciousness obtaining in and through everything. And another name for it is Paramatma. This is consciousness from the standpoint of the macrocosm.
So with regards to that, is that like a linear experience that you go through Kshetrajna and then Jneyam, or is it like something that you experience at the same time?
It is it's just one consciousness described from two different standpoints. The consciousness in and through obtaining in the entire universe, and also consciousness obtaining just from your own body mind. So we're talking about the same thing, just from two different standpoints. Iti kshetram tatha jnanam jneyam choktam samasataha madbhakta etad vijnaya madbhavayo papadyate.
Thus, the kshetra, as well as the means of gaining knowledge and what is to be known, have been told in brief. The one who is devoted to me, knowing this clearly, is fit to gain the condition of being me. For this vision, Jneyam Brahma, who is qualified. The one whose devotion or commitment is to me, Parameshvara, who is all knowledge and ultimate guru. Because he is the initiator of this knowledge, he is the original and final guru. The one who has given his entire mind, senses, everything to the pursuit of the knowledge of Bhagavan is called Madbhakta by Bhagavan. And when you want everything, you have to give everything. That is how it is. Even in gambling, if you are very sure you're going to win, you will stake everything. But here, there is no gamble because what you have to accomplish is already an established fact. Therefore, there is no question of losing. Here, to the extent you give up, to that extent you gain in the sense. The more contented you are, the more you are able to give up. The more dissatisfied you are, the less you can give up. Here, giving up is really growing out of something, so that every time you give up something, you have grown out of it, and therefore there is no loss involved. Here, whatever is given up is not lost in the sense that it is subsumed in the knowledge of Satya and Mithya. Thus, everything is given up, and the one who is ready to give up everything in order to gain this knowledge is called Madbhakta by Bhagavan.
So far, before getting to what the verse is saying, chapter 13 talks about 6 words, and we have covered 4 words so far. The 4 words that we have covered starts with kshetram. Kshetram. This is matter. So when you hear the word kshetram, think of matter or energy. Doesn't matter. It's still a subtler form of matter. In chapter 7, we call this apara prakriti. We've also talked about kshetrajna. This is awareness shining through the sthula, sukshma, and karana sharira. In chapter 7, we call this para prakriti. We also covered jnanam. Jnanam, in this context, means 20 values. And we finally covered jneyam, which is that which is to be known, being the truth of everything. That means 2 more remain. What are they? Prakriti and Purusha. Now the verse says, who among the seekers is most fit to gain this great knowledge? And then Krishna says, Mad Bhaktaha, in other words, my devotees. Now, who are these my devotees? Suppose you want to investigate into a frog, right? You're a frog dissector. You're a devotee of a frog. If you are an accountant, you're an accountant devotee. If you are a devotee of the truth, you want to know God completely. What's the nature of God? What is my relationship to him? What is the nature of this entire existence? Then you are a Mad Bhakta, my devotee. So Krishna here is talking about devotion. So the question is, what is complete devotion? What does complete devotion look like? First of all, devotion is not just mere intellectual or emotional sense of surrender unto the Lord with love. That's not what devotion is only. There's much more to devotion. Devotion also involves 2 more parts. The first, it involves an intellectual appreciation of the truth. Just having an emotional love for the Lord is insufficient, even though it's going to make the mind pure, but you have to go into the intellectual study of this knowledge and start to think about it. That's when devotion really starts to get complete. And second is, because that's still not enough. If you stop at emotional response, emotional surrender, that's good, but still not enough. If you stop at intellectual appreciation of the truth and you study the scriptures, it is still not enough. To really demonstrate whether you're applying, you need an active discrimination between kshetrajna and kshetram. In other words, practice. Because it's only your willingness to practice, it really shows that whether what you're studying is meaningful to you, versus just something that I've been told to do, therefore, hey, let's just kill some time. In other words, the practice really proves to yourself whether you really care about this. And that is what devotion is. Emotional love for the Lord, intellectual appreciation for the truth, but also active discrimination between the knower and the field. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.